Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Seizing Serenity in the Midst of Chaos workshop today. We've got a few students here today who have actually been students of this work already, so it should be interesting as we invite you to participate with us as we go through these slides and introduce the program, because we're going to probably utilize this video. So do we have your permission to do that? Mayor? Mayor, yes, you too. We have your permission to utilize this video.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Fabulous. All
Good.
right. So here we go. So Susan, I'm going to say, Susan, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. So my name is Sue Janzen. I'm living way up north in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So nice to be here. And I just want to, I just love bringing this material to people because it just gives us a new way of thinking about how to have and find that inner sense of peace and well-being. And so we want to seize that serenity and we want to share some of the tools today and a few exercises and strategies, and just a pleasure to meet you. So thank you for being here today.
And Susan is a certified trainer of Happy for No Reason.
Yeah.
And she is also a certified Jay Shetty transformation coach.
Yes.
So very nice. And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I am the author of Unflappable, 6 Steps to Staying Happy, Centered, and Peaceful, No Matter What. And I'm also a certified trainer for many years of neuro-linguistic programming, and will tell you why that's an important relevance to this program that we're going to share with you in just a minute. Here, we're going to start, see if I can get this to change slides. There we go. Susan,
Yes.
the slide is yours.
Okay, so this guy is just, we just want, isn't he cute? Like, we just want to put a little smile on your face. And I'd love to get to know people just a little bit. And if you're comfortable, Mary and Mare, if you're comfortable, just to, find out how you came to this class and what brought you here today. Like, what would you like to have the outcome at the end of this to be a very valuable time for you?
Mary, why don't you go first? You're muted. There we go.
I guess I just really like the topic of being able to shift to focus on the positive and happy things rather than often getting stuck in the judgments and negative things.
It's something that happens all the time, right? Getting caught in the judgment. So yeah.
That means
Mare.
you're human. So this is very good.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, do you have any input here? Like, what are you curious about?
The title brought me to the class.
Awesome.
Okay.
So
we're engulfed in between 2 fires right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it went from 2,000 acres to 50,000 acres, and my parents are on the border and my dad's on oxygen. So if he has to evacuate, it's a little bit more complicated. And so I would say, like, I'm in the midst of chaos at the moment.
I believe it.
Wow.
And where are you located, Mare? Where are you?
Southern California.
Okay.
Right below Mount Baldy, which is evacuated and losing some of the homes.
Wow. Yeah, we just had that up here in Jasper, Alberta, Canada. Like, the third of the town was burnt down, and the Jasper is our diamond in the rough. Like, it's our, so I understand how terrifying that is and how stressful that is. So
yeah, and literally how much chaos it creates for so many people, including the firefighters.
Yeah, except all of the first responders, and especially if you have a disability, because I deal a lot with the people with like physical and mobility issues, and just getting, if they're in a wheelchair and they're saying, well, evacuate your building. Well, excuse me, you shut down the elevator. How am I supposed to do that? So that's happening here a lot, and I'm very aware of that too.
Yeah,
so
like if my dad has to evacuate, it'll be by paramedic, but will they be available? Because he's, got stairs and in a wheelchair. So yeah, it just brings up a lot of different different things.
Right.
And these are circumstances where it's really in your highest and best interest to stay as calm as you can be emotionally. So, and to step out of the potential danger and everything and just focus on what you actually can do. So this is great. You're here today for this. So one of the questions that we are asking you to think about is, what do we really want from happiness? What is it that we want? And this is just a list of things that most people want, joy, inner peace. We want to feel a sense of empowerment, some power over our lives, because we don't have any power over what's happening, but we do have power and agency over what we do with how we respond to that. So moving from reaction to response is part of what this is about. People will get engaged in all these personal growth trainings because they want to have more resilience emotionally, better relationships, and then the whole conscious awareness world where people want to become more awake and do things like that. So here's another little thing. Susan, you want to run through this slide?
Sure. So this is, if you don't mind, I'd love to take this opportunity and just, Mayor, especially for you, just to kind of take a space, just an honored space for you, and just to breathe deeply. And this is just a quick exercise that I like to do with people, and just to introduce you to connect with the moments of genuine happiness that you have had either like any time in your past. And so what I'd like to do is just, we often get caught up in the hustle and the bustle of this daily life, and especially when you're under major stresses like fires, we forget to check in with ourselves and reflect on what truly makes us happy. So I want you, if you can, and if you're comfortable doing this, to just grab a piece of paper and a pencil. We're going to take a deep breath, but then I'm going to get you to write down something. And this is just a simple awareness exercise, and where you just want to draw a line down the middle of the page, and on the top of the one side, on your left hand side, put "I am happy." And remember, the happiness leaves clues. So we want to actually remember and find some of the clues that we are going to discover right now. And just this will just be a few moments. So now you've got your equipment there, just feet on the floor and just get comfortable in your chair. And just take a really deep breath, just a belly. I love those belly breaths. And just breathe in. And breathe out any things that's stressing you right now. Anything that's just kind of really heavy on your mind. The people that you love and care for that you're worried about. If you can, just breathe in, up. Just a feeling of peace, and to breathe out all that worry. Okay. And now I want to ask you a simple question. So when did I ever feel happy? This could be an event. This could be just a little glimpse of a part of a party, or something that's happened in your life. It doesn't have to be a full event, but it could just be something tiny that you saw a certain bird in the tree, like anything that just, whatever comes to your mind when you think of the times in your life where you genuinely felt happy, fulfilled, and just at peace. So if you can, write that on that one side of the paper. And these moments, however fleeting, hold valuable clues to what truly mattered. And they don't have to be big events, like I said. They could be just a moment in time. And if you're able, write down as many as you can. It might be, some of us just have one thing we remember. Some of us have a few things. So just jot them down just for now, because you can always take this paper later and just go through it a little more deeply. And also jot down things like, how did your body feel? And what were you doing exactly? Where were you? And who are you with? And these reflections just help you uncover patterns and insights that may guide you in bringing more happiness into your life today. So if you feel like, if you'd ever want to share, please just raise your hand by yourself or anything, or raise your hand from the bottom of the page if you'd like to share this. Would love to hear from you. Oh, Mayor, thank you. Thank you.
My happiest moments are like when I'm aware, present to the moment, and aware that I am awareness, as opposed to like over identifying with my personality. Meeting people, especially traveling, just those like random encounters, synchronicity in community, like when I went to Esalen, and adventure, the feeling of being alive, like alive, present moment, and an event like my wedding where all the people I love most are in one room.
Wow. Yes.
Nice.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Mary, do you want to share or are you good? We don't want to force you for sure. You're good. Okay, good. So Mary, thank you so much for sharing that. And you remember, I'm sure that you're so self-aware already. I can tell that you remember how you felt. And sometimes there's little things, like for an example, the one example I had in another class where a lady just said, when I was at university, I was my happiest. She was now in her 40s. And she was just saying, I used to stop at this one coffee shop and just grab coffee in the morning and see my university friends. And that one place and that one time and the smell of the coffee and the friendship I felt, that just made her happiest. So after we talked for a while in the coaching session, she actually went back to that coffee shop and just deliberately made that choice to do that. So that's all we're doing now, is just finding those little clues and hints of what made you happy. And if you can go back later, maybe just re-examine those and say, maybe I could do that again, or call that friend, or whatever it comes up for you. So now, just before we end off, on the other side of the paper, you write down how you're feeling like right now in this moment. Are you feeling the same happiness, or are you in a different state? And if you can, just be as specific as you can. Let's just do one more minute, okay? Awesome. So again, just to close off with this exercise, and again, this is something that this paper now you can take with you after. I really want you to give some thought to it later and just to think about it. But the purpose is to help you identify those moments of happiness so that you can use them like as a compass to navigate your current life. So you just remember what that was like, and then that's the place where you want to find and search out again. And just by recognizing the situation, the people, the activities that contributed, you can begin to create a life that aligns more closely with what truly makes you feel fulfilled. It's just a reminder, and just say, oh, yeah. So when you have those really tough times, you just take a deep breath and go, okay, I remember that time. And that's how I have a child, a granddaughter that has cerebral palsy, and she's just like a joy for me. And when she giggles, it just makes my heart just sing. So every time I get into that place, then I just think about Kalea, I just remember. And it just fills me up. And then I move on and I carry on. So that's just one example that I use. So thank you very much. I've got some happiness stats for you now. If we're all getting, should we go into the
Nope,
stats?
not yet. Not
Okay,
yet, sweetie.
I will wait. I'm enough. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
So one of the things here that you got some specific things, but here are things that generally make people happy. Remembering some moment of love in their life, usually in a relationship of some kind. The notion of comfort, being able to actually relax and enjoy just moments of comfort by itself. Lots of times people say investing their money and growing it is what makes them happy. If they're in a situation where they don't feel that they're being treated properly or with equal respect, gaining equality is what brings happiness. So there's all kinds of things. For a lot of people, what we found is the answer to this question is meditation or contemplation. Sometimes it's healing of a relationship or something in life that brings your heart back together that was broken at one time. Obviously, success in your external life is oftentimes what makes people feel joyous for a while. Celebrations like a birthday, if you notice those little guys, there's a birthday cake the middle one is holding. That brings happiness, and oftentimes creative aspects like writing or music or painting, any of those kinds of things. Oftentimes, what we hear from people is this is when they're the happiest, is whenever this is occurring. So, what we're saying is, what do you need to seize serenity in the midst of chaos? Because you're going to need something. And we call this the 3 C's of happiness. And what you want to do is keep these in mind, because if you're not happy or feeling serene in the midst of chaos, then there's probably not clarity about the proper way to look at it. If you don't have clarity, it's hard to make a commitment to actually staying true to that clarity or that vision. And without the courage to act, it's hard to carry it, because your external life is in the midst of something that does not make you happy. Okay, so these 3 things are very important. So why do we need clarity? Why do we need it? If we don't have, one thing we often get clear about is why we're unhappy. We often get very clear about that. Well, I know why I'm unhappy, because X is doing Y. Jane is not treating me properly, and it hurts my feelings. Okay. Well, that's clear about why you're not happy. But the question here is, what do you need? Why do you need clarity to be happy? So the purpose here is to understand that something has to change in the way we're relating to the situation. We have to get clear about where the happiness is resting. And part of what Susan was just talking about is, where are your clues? Once you know if you have a clue as to what makes you happy, it makes it a little bit easier to have clarity about what direction you're supposed to go in here to change and transform your unhappiness into happiness. Because understand that that's what we're talking about. How do you move from unhappiness into a state of happiness? Okay. It's not about getting rid of your unhappiness. It's about learning how to transform the way you're looking at it. So the second one, why do we need commitment? Well, gosh, it takes effort. It takes effort to pull yourself out of the unhappiness and ask yourself the question, what is it I need here to make this a happier experience for me? How do I need to be looking at it? Who do I need to be? What do I need to bring into the scenario here that's not there when I'm feeling completely unhappy? Does this make sense to you? Both the clarity and the commitment? Can I see some hands? Okay, that's good. And the third one was courage. Well, why do we need courage to be happy? Hello, that sounds ridiculous, right? And yet it takes courage to be happy, because most of the world is not happy. It is not happy. And I know a long time ago on my journey, which was very much a spiritually oriented journey for most of my adult life, people would say to me, happiness is not a worthwhile goal because it's temporary, they would say. And so I thought, well, that's reasonable. So I guess it's not something to look for, which was devastating to my heart and soul, because all I ever wanted was to be happy. That's all I ever wanted. And then one day later on, I heard the Dalai Lama say, the reason that we are here is to learn how to be happy. Yay, I get to go back on my original track, my original pull, which is how to be happy in the midst of this world that we live in, which is so filled with things that for most people bring out sadness or misery or despair or other kinds of things, rather than courage and commitment. So the story here is, if you're going to have courage, it's because you're going to move away from the norm. Okay. And that requires courage. Your unconscious conditioning, remember I mentioned neuro-linguistic programming at the beginning, which is about your learning how to navigate your unconscious mind. And that's what my area of expertise has been for the past 40 years. So if you're going to go outside and take the unbeaten path, the unwalked path, you need courage. And honestly, to be happy in this world takes courage. People think you're a little nuts oftentimes, or just crazy, or you're not really living in reality. Okay. So, with those three things in hand, we're going to talk a little bit about the three kinds of happiness. And this is really important to get your head around, that there's three kinds of happiness. Okay. And that's what our course is about, helping you really get your head around. The first one, everybody knows, it's called go get it happiness, right, Susan? You want something, you go after it. It's
Yeah.
that simple, right? You get an idea in your mind, like let's take something concrete. After lunch yesterday, I was with a friend, and suddenly she said, I want some frozen yogurt." Now, where did that come from? She wanted something and she knew it would make her happy if she got it. So what happened is we Googled close, ice cream shops, and we found one that was like a half a block away. And off we went to the ice cream shop. And then we had the ice cream, or it was gelato actually. And then what happened? The momentary happiness of having gotten what we wanted dissipated. Right. And lo and behold, we were off again for our next quest for what would make us happy. And in this conversation, she happened to be someone on the same spiritual journey that I am. So we got to talking about what the next spiritual goal was that we should get after, and that would make us happy. Right. So it's beautiful stuff. Happy for no reason is Susan's area of expertise, and she's going to talk about that in just a few minutes and explain to you exactly what that is and how to develop it, which is part of our course as well. So that's a really amazing thing. Happy for no reason? I mean, what is that? Right? How could you be happy for no reason? Because we're all so ensconced with go get it happiness, right? And then the last one is my work, which is called Happy, Centered, and Peaceful, No Matter What. And this is actually, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. What is that? It's helped you build a bridge between external happiness and internal happiness. So we just talked a minute ago about the pros of go get it happiness. It makes you happy. Your desire is fulfilled. The downside of go get it happiness is whatever happiness you've just acquired then disappears. It dissipates. So every bit of happiness that we go after and we get is temporary. And that's the downside of go get it happiness. It is a temporary phenomenon. There's nothing wrong with it. Go after every bit of happiness you want. All right. It's usually external, but understand that it's temporary. Okay. And that helps to make you happier when you understand that. This is Susan, the architecture of happy for no reason, which she's going to talk about in just a minute and get into the detail of it, of how do you do that. And it's an actual architectural thing that you're going to build inside of yourself with her guidance and support. And the third one is based on my book, Unflappable, which is the 6 steps that I mentioned earlier. And the outcome of this type of happiness is that it allows you to build a bridge between your outer happiness and your inner happiness, so that when you have your outer happiness reach its the point where it's temporary and it's going to evaporate, you have someplace to go. You can turn inward and go to your inner happiness, which Susan is going to show you how to build, and I'm going to show you how you easily walk back and forth between the two. Those are the 3 kinds of happiness. Any comments or questions on that? So just raise your electronic hand over there. You guys are pretty quiet. So, all right. Susan, it's yours for a while now. Go ahead.
Awesome. So I just wanted, yeah, this is a cute little cartoon. Why is happiness so elusive? And then the owl says, the wise old owl says, because you look for it in the future instead of the present. And that always brings back that external happiness that Ragini was talking about. Oh, when I lose 10 pounds, I'm going to be happy. And when I get the promotion, I'm going to be happy. So what I'd like to share with you right now are just some happiness stats. So like less than 30% of people report being deeply happy. And 25%, these are the World Health Organization stats. 25% of Americans and they don't have Canadian stats, unfortunately. 25% of Americans and 27% of Europeans claim they are depressed. And the World Health Organization predicts that depression will be second only to heart disease in terms of global burden of illness. So we're just not talking about this fleeting happiness stuff, just jump up and down and be excited. We're talking about well-being and for your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul too. So this is a lot deeper than just those, external things that we think and relate to happiness. And so the third one is researchers have found that no matter what happens in your life, you tend to return to a fixed range of happiness. In my studies with Happy for No Reason and Marcy Shimoff's work, she talks about this happiness set point, like your weight set point, which keeps the scale hovering around the same number. And your happiness set point will remain the same unless you make a concerted effort to change it. And that's that self-awareness we're talking about. And finally, 50% of happiness comes from our genetics. This is 10 of our genetics. The next slide will show this to you. And 10% of our happiness set point is determined by circumstances such as our level of wealth, our marital status, our job, and 40% by our habitual thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So yeah, there's the slide. So this is really interesting because the good news about this is that most people feel like they can deal with the circumstances and I can fix that and I can be happy. The good news here with the set point, we'll go into this, is that 40 and 50 adds up to 90% of the happiness set point that we all get to. We can change, and we have the power and the mindset to be able to change that. That's the great news. So imagine your happiness is just like a temperature in a room, and your internal set point for happiness is like a thermostat. So just like a thermostat is set to maintain a certain temperature, your happiness set point is the level of happiness that you naturally return to, regardless of what happens. A really good example of this is when somebody wins the lottery. Like you've just won $4 million and you're really miserable before, you win all this money, you're happy, you spent it all. And then the next thing you know, you've wasted it or it's all gone. And now you're back to where you were before you won it in the first place. So if something happens, like receiving good news or achieving a goal, winning a lottery, like I said, it's like turning up the heat in the room. But you might feel a surge of happiness and the temperature of your happiness rises above your set point. However, after some time, the happiness level will likely return to the original set point. It just seemed we do that as humans. And but after some time, your happiness level will likely return to the original set point. And but this is where we have control over this. So conversely, when something negative happens, such as a disappointment, a setback, or a loss of a family member, a divorce, you lose your job, it's like a temperature in the room drops. And you might feel down for a while, but eventually your happiness level will rise again to match your set point that you've determined. So that's where we have the power in that area. So the idea is that we all have happiness set point that's determined by a combination of factors: our genetics, our upbringing, our habitual thought patterns. And while external circumstances can temporarily raise or lower the happiness, we tend to gravitate back again to that set point. So that's just to get you in your mind what the set point is. The good news, though, is that just like adjusting a thermostat, we can raise our happiness set point by changing our mindset, our habits, and the way we respond to events, or our thoughts and our actions. So through practices like gratitude, positive thinking, self-awareness, self-care, you can actually reset our internal thermostat to a higher level of happiness and maintain that calm even when the shit happens. Like even when terrible things happen, we can still kind of remain in that set point that we've reestablished for ourselves. So since the set point is really the key to our happiness, let's see how it's determined. Again, I talked about this a little bit, but we'll just go through this quickly. So 50% is genetic, we're born with it. And only 10% are the small things on the pie. That's where everything is that we try to control in order to be happy. That's the 10%. Those are just the circumstances that surround us. The other 40% are the habits, our thoughts and behaviors, and just and it's what you have the most control over changing, which is awesome news. So the biggest difference between happy people and unhappy people is simply that they just have different habits. Have you noticed that? You've got all these really positive people all the time and you're like, what, are you on drugs? I mean, you kind of get annoyed at them because they're maintaining that calm even in the midst when really bad things happen. So I've just got one little baby exercise for you. If you don't mind, take your arms and just fold them over like you're folding your arms over. And just cross your arms. So what arm, if you look down, what arm is on top? You guys tell me what arm is on top. Mary?
Right arm.
My left.
Oh, me too. Me too. And Mare?
It's funny because I went side by side, like neither one is on top,
Oh, did you cross your arms like this?
like this.
Well, no, it's, you know
So
how when
cross them
you're
the
mad
other
at
way.
somebody, huh?
Yeah, I did it wrong.
No, you didn't do it wrong. You did it differently. So
Yeah.
Just
do
differently.
it the
That's
way that
okay.
she was asking. See what happens. Do it
Okay.
this way. What happens? Which is on top?
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't even find, let me see. My
That's
left is on top.
Oh, good. And Rockety, what was yours? Is yours right?
My right is on top. Yeah.
Ah, most people is it's the right. So I feel very attuned here to Mary. I was left hand when I was a baby, and then they changed me. So I'm kind of I iron with my left hand, and I deal cards with my left hand. But anyway, so I was left hand too. But what this demonstrates, and now I want you to do the other arm. So if your left was on top, just naturally, not thinking about it, now put your right on top. Cross your arms with your right one on
It's
top.
very uncomfortable.
I can't even really do it.
It's
Yeah,
very hard.
it's like it's really hard. So that's just an idea. That's just a demonstration of just how habits are there and they're just ingrained. And even if we try to change them, it's really uncomfortable and it's out of we're not comfortable. So that just gives you a quick, really weird little
Can I throw in one point here, Susan? And that is that
please.
in order to develop the habit of your other arm being comfortable, you would have to engage in different activities. And that's the large, in order to do your neurology different, so that your brain began to understand that you could do either arm would be fine. So that's where the expertise in neurolinguistic programming comes in. Once again, it's about showing you how to deal with your own unconsciously created habits
Right.
and how to change them over time, right? In
Right.
a faster way, and
Yeah.
recode your brain. So just throwing
Right.
that in, that this is a great example of why it's difficult to change in the beginning, but it can be
Exactly.
done.
And it's just uncomfortable and exactly, Rockany. So it's just that we can do it. It's not like we can't do it. And it just takes the mindset and our self-awareness. That's the
You ready for the next slide?
I'm ready for the next one.
Okay.
And if you guys have any comments at all, please just raise your hand or yell out. We're totally comfortable with that. Love to hear your thoughts. So this is kind of the whole premise of my Happy for No Reason training. And it's called the inner home for happiness. And there are 21 main happiness habits that anyone can practice to raise the happiness set point. But these habits, and the good news is they fall into 7 main areas. And so since it's hard to remember 7 of anything, we're going to use a metaphor and to help us remember this. It's called the building your inner home for happiness. And here's how the house looks for the 7 main areas. And as I go through each of them, I'll go briefly. I want you to think of where you are the strongest in this. As I go through these 7, please just kind of think, oh, that's where I'm kind of need work, or that's where I'm the strongest. Okay, just to keep that in the back of your mind. So the very first and most important is, are you worthy? This is like the foundation. Just like a strong foundation is crucial for a stable home, establishing your inner core sets the groundwork for lasting happiness. And this is where you discover and explore self-acceptance, your worthiness, your self-compassion, self-love, self-care. And that helps you build that strong foundation. You are, and my biggest thing, that my takeaway always, and I have to always remind myself, is that you are, or I am 100% responsible for my happiness. Nobody else is. And I can't expect or blame, shame, complain if somebody else doesn't do it. So that's my biggest takeaway that I hope you remember here today, just that we're responsible and we can make things change and happen. And so our self-worth, it determines, and this also determines if you are a victim, if everyone's against me, or are you a victor? So you want to be a victor who takes responsibility for their own happiness. And then now the second is the pillar of the mind. So there's the heart, body, soul, and mind are the 4 pillars. And the second is the pillar of the mind. This is where we cultivate positive thinking, those people who have that positive mindset. And your mind plays a significant role in shaping happiness. In the course, we talk about techniques about reframing negative thoughts, practicing gratitude and mindfulness. And do your thoughts support your happiness, or do you have a lot of negative thinking that robs you of that happiness? So here's a great exercise. This, and I'll just briefly go through this because I know we'll short on time here a little bit. But one of my favorite games is called the blame, shame, complain game, where you engage in blaming others for making you feel bad, or complaining about something like the weather, like how we could complain about the weather, even the fires we could complain about, but we have no control over that. And also finally the last one is shame, and that's where you are taking negative thoughts and patterns and beliefs about yourself, and you're shaming yourself for something you've done in the past, perhaps. Are complaining about things we can't control, like the weather. I said, we just give away our power and responsibility if we are blaming, shaming, or complaining at everything. And just it prevents us from experiencing true and lasting happiness. And instead, we need to learn to shift away from those habits of blame, shaming, and complaining. And there's a quick game that we play in our course. It was kind of fun. You have a bowl on your table, and you guys have we have loonies and toonies, so they're coins, but in the States you can put dollar bills in, and every time you outside externally blame, shame, or complain about anything, you put money in the bowl. And then after 1 week, count up your money, and you're amazed at how many times you actually do that. And you don't even, if you're doing it with somebody else in your family, they can actually say, hey, you're complaining about the weather, like put your money in. Or you could do a whiteboard and check marks, whatever works for you. And then the interesting part is when you do it again the second week, now that you're aware, it's amazing how many times you just stop. You go to complain to somebody or say something, and you just stop, and you go delete, back up. No, I'm not going to do that. You can keep it to yourself. Those are your thoughts. You can honor those, but we don't have to verbalize it. And then that puts us in that lowers our set point, right? We don't want to go there. So why give up our power? So it's just a decision, but it's a fun game to do with people. So the fourth is the pillar of the body, and that is the physical. Health directly impacts mental and emotional well-being, and I hope you agree with that. And enough serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins to support your happiness or what you need. And so what are you eating? What are your sleeping and exercising habits? And again, in that course that we have, we discover, how your physical health contributes to your overall health, happiness. We dive into each one of those areas. And the fifth is a pillar of the soul. So spirituality is a deeply personal aspect, and we honor that and appreciate that. Everybody has their own idea about that, but do you feel plugged in to a spirit, anything that's greater than you? Do you feel that bigger and broader sense of energy of your life? And do you believe that this is a benevolent, a loving universe? That attitude is something we can also shape and raise that set point. And the sixth is the roof. Now, just as the roof provides shelter and protection, discovering your life's purpose, we call the roof is your purpose or your passion in your life. And as your actions align, do your actions align with your purpose? And what is your purpose or passion? What is it exactly? And do you feel inspired by life? And those are good questions that we dive into. And then the last one is the garden. This has to do with who you surround yourself with. And just think about this for a second. Are you surrounding yourself with roses and daisies? They're supportive, they're uplifting, they're just people who cheer you on and love you no matter what. Or do you surround yourself with the weeds, those toxic people who never contribute to your success or never support you when you accomplish anything? They're just more like toxic people in your life. So just to quickly review those seven, I hope that you, Mary and Mary, I hope you came up with one that you're really great at and one that you might need work, just to keep that in mind. Yeah. So, and also we are gonna, Ragini's gonna put a quiz in your chat, in the chat box. And just to, we won't do it now, but we'll leave that with you as a gift. Do you have that, Ragini, or no?
I don't have it right now, and I can't get to it as long as I'm sharing and on Zoom.
Okay.
So I'll send it to the two of them because I happen to know who they are.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I will send you the test, the happiness quiz. And yeah.
And all it is just so you know, it's not meant to be shared even or anything. It's just for you personally. And it's for you to just get a number, like it's like, how often do you feel grateful? And it's out of 40, you give it like 1, 2, 3, or 4 and points for each question, 1 or to 4. And at the end, it's 40 points total. And then it gives you a little scoring template at the end saying, okay, you are already happy for no reason if you've got a high score. And it gives you the definitions of those scores. And again, it's meant to just kind of generally see where you are if you needed to know that, if you were unaware of that. It's just a fun little tool. Yeah. So that's it for my stuff.
Okay. So the question is, check your own experience right now. And the question would be, can you stay happy while building your home of happiness? Well, the fact that you're here today means that you are interested in being happy. All right. So you are engaged in building your home. Now you have a template to utilize that Susan has given that will be taught, that we'll teach more fully in the course. But here's the thing. Here's what we usually do. You see what this guy is doing? Unhappiness is trying to get in the door, and we try to keep out what makes us unhappy. And this is a fundamental thing that we all do without thinking about it. We want to get rid of whatever makes us unhappy. Okay. So here's what we're suggesting to do instead. And there's a reason why. We're asking you to learn how to invite your unhappiness in for a cup of tea or coffee and have a chat. And I often offer a scone as well because I really like pastries. So I always include that. But the reason you want to become familiar with your unhappiness, the reason you want to pay some attention to it is because it has information for you. It has a piece of wisdom for you about, guess what? How to be happy. All right. And it's kind of a paradox, which is what my work is really all about, is helping people learn how to deal with paradox. So how can your unhappiness be a messenger for how to be happier? Well, if you can manage to get your head around that, which is what our course is going to help offer you, you'll start to realize that there's an easier way to deal with unhappiness when it comes into your life. And we all know it's going to come. And even if we work really hard to get rid of it, it's going to keep coming in other ways. Even if we conquer one area, there's going to be other areas, because one of the forces of life is to help us become more balanced. You know, if you study ecology ever, the fundamental drive of all living systems is balance or homeostasis. Well, we're a part of those living systems. We're alive and we're a system. We have a bodily system, an emotional system, a mental system, a spiritual system, if you will, an energetic system. And all of these systems, their goal is to come to balance. Well, there's some reasons why this is tough, and why understanding that the negative aspect, the unpleasant experiences, are something we have to learn to deal with differently rather than trying to keep them out like that little guy trying to push the door closed on the unhappiness. So what do we have to do? We have to realize and embrace 3 experiences. That's all, just 3 experiences that are happening daily in your life. Okay. So I want you to just check and ask yourself if these 3 experiences are actually happening in your life. Here's the first experience: impermanence and uncertainty. In the course of a day, do you find that your good state of mind, your good emotional balance changes, that it's not permanent, that it changes and fluctuates multiple times throughout the day? If you can say, yes, you know that, would you just raise your hand? Okay, so, and Susan and I both know that too. So everything that arises actually only stays for a period of time, and then it changes and goes away, changes into something else. Well, what this produces is the experience of uncertainty. If things are always changing, well, how are we supposed to be certain of how to behave, how to think, how to be, what to do? How can we do that when everything is changing? So this is a strategy we don't have an answer for. And this is where my background in neurolinguistic programming comes in, and in physiological psychology, because the two things we have to work with are your unconscious mind's objection to this pattern of constant change. And we need to get your brain to have a new way to deal with it. And that's part of what this next section is all about. So the second thing that we all have the experience in every day is duality. Now, what do I mean by duality? I mean opposites. I'm up, I'm down. My focus is outer, now my focus is inner. I love my partner, I hate my partner. Okay. I adore my weight, I'm unhappy with my weight. Okay. I have a lot of friends and it's wonderful, and I'm lonely. Okay. There's hard duality is always there, up, down, right, wrong, a major issue for most of us. Inner, outer, connection, separation, um, um, harmonious, and cacophony, right? Dissonance, annoyance. Everything in the human experience comes in polar pairs. The thing is, we don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying people don't know that. We all know, there's opposites. I want to be right. Guess what? I'm wrong too much. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. And I can't mute my volume
Okay.
because I have the screen share up and I can't get to it. I have a cold today, so pardon me, please. I'm sorry about that. So the duality comes in our lives every day because of constant change, because of impermanence. I can feel happy and then I can feel sad, but we look at nature, and nature allows this flow between opposites. Like the beach does not get upset because the tides come in and then they go out. The beach does not say, no, no, tide, stay, please. I love the patterns. Don't go, go, go. No, it doesn't do that. It's at ease. It's comfortable with allowing the tides to come in, disrupting the sands of its shore. And it allows the waters to flow out, again, rearranging the sands on the shore. It doesn't have any problem. Day and night have no conflict between them. In fact, they do the handovers really easy with twilight and daybreak. So you've got both of these things, examples, and there's many more in nature, where this flow between opposing forces and experiences happens easily without a fight. This is not a description of most human beings. We fight. We don't want the negative. We don't want the unpleasant. So this is a second thing that we're going to learn how to embrace. You're going to learn how to embrace these two things. And the third one, which is continuous movement. Life is always moving, always changing its shape, always inviting us to a new moment, a new experience, a new moment. Life is, be here now. We hear that phrase a lot in the consciousness world, be here now. Well, wait a minute, where's the now? It was here, now it's gone. So in order to be like the beach, right, the sands on the shore, you want to just let it come in the moment and let it go out and prepare for this next moment that's going to be right there. So you don't have to work to have new moment of experience. It will come your way naturally. If we can see that if we were able to embrace these three very important experiences. These are not concepts. These are experiences that you can verify are happening in your daily life every day, which makes it a lot easier to realize that they need to have some way to be dealt with. So the flow of life is something that people use a lot, that term, let's go with the flow, be present to the flow. And I went on an experiment and started asking people, can you describe to me what the flow of life is? Can you tell me what it is? And curiously enough, what kind of answer do you think I got? Mary and Mare, what kind of answer do you think I got from people when I said, can you describe to me exactly what the flow of life is? Either one of you got a reply, Mary or Mare?
I think you
Mare?
got that, like it's living in the moment.
Living in the moment. And what's the moment? How do we know the
Like,
moment? It's what I
like
would say.
by the sensations in their body.
Okay. And Mary, do you have any comment as well? No? Okay. All right, that's fine. Okay, so what I found out in answering people is most people answered the same kind of thing that Mayor just said. It's the moment. It's being present to now. It doesn't really help us because we don't really know what the present is or the now is. Why? Because it changes so fast, right? As soon as you've got it, it's gone. Susan, go ahead.
I was just thinking when you were talking about the flow, do we go down with the flow of the river? Like if you're swimming, do you go with the river or do you try to swim upstream? That always comes to my mind when I think of the flow. Like, do I want to fight
Good example.
this? Am I going to fight this or just go with it? Like, just let it go. Just go with it.
Yeah, and that's a really good example because if you want to go with the flow, if we go to a river, the flow goes from the top down, it flows downward, back to its source is what the rivers do. They flow back to the ocean. The thing here is in meditation, what people tell you is to sit on the side of the bank. Sit on the bank and watch the flow go by. Well, that's beautiful when you're meditating and sitting on your pillow and you've got time to just actually be present and just practice being. Okay. But what about when you're in the flow of life and you're at work or you're dealing with your family or you're trying to cook dinner and you've got 3 other people talking to you at the same time? How are you supposed to go with the flow then in terms of being present? You can't really sit on the bank of the river because you got to be active. You're actually in the flow at that time. You're trying to create dinner, have conversation, not cut your hand with a cutting knife. You want to stay with the carrots, not your finger. And so there's all kinds of things to focus on. So what we found out is that if you look at a river, this is a beautiful example, you will notice that the flow not only goes forward, it goes downward. It also goes from the right bank to the left bank, to the right bank, and to the left bank. It does not choose a bank to stay on. The waters of a river do not say, all right, we got to stay on the right bank. That's the correct one. Do not go on the left bank. River, stop it. It can't do that. It does not fight this inherently natural pattern. And I got to say, this is the cool part. There's a pattern in the flow of life. And once you find that pattern, you have a high probability of being able to actually go with the flow. That is very cool. Wouldn't you think that'd be cool to know where the flow is going and you could actually agree to go with it? Pretty cool. So the facticity work, which is my 6 steps, shows you how to bridge your quest for both external happiness, go get it happiness, and internal happiness, which is what Susan has described. You need to create the structure for. You need to have these things in place in order for internal happiness to be there. So you notice this bridge here is made of infinity loops, okay? And they're actually made of rope. So it's one of those swinging bridges, right? There's always motion going on when you try to cross this bridge. But this is the bridge that you really need to understand because it allows you to embrace those 3 things that we just talked about: impermanence and uncertainty, the duality as one whole instead of 2 things in constant conflict, and the presence of continuous movement. So this bridge and this 6 steps, which we show you in the training, we show you how to do it, allows you to make this bridge so you can constantly go back and forth and you can go from the right side to the left side to the right side to the left side without clinging to one and trying to avoid the other. That's the key. So just to give you a quick look at, just as Susan gave you a look at the architecture of inner happiness, this is the 6-step process. And this step 1 in this process shows you how to see the problem clearly. And what does that mean? It means we bring those 3 things in and we help you look at your experience from those 3 perspectives: impermanence, duality as one whole, and the fact of continual movement. And what happens is you see the problem much more clearly, right? Because you see that movement is happening. And what we're trying to do is get the movement to stop. We want it to be on the pleasant side of experience. We do not want to go on to the negative side, right? Does that make sense to everybody? That you match your own experience. Step two, when you start to see this by bringing in these three new perspectives, you realize this isn't actually a problem. You've just been trying to navigate it in a way that doesn't work, right? And what is that way? You want to keep the one you want and get rid of the one you don't want. That's all we do. That's our basic strategy for how to be happy. Go after what you want and get rid of what you don't want. Unfortunately, what we usually do is focus on what we don't, getting rid of what we don't want. That's what most of our lives are actually around, trying to figure out how to get rid of that so we can be happy 100% of the time. So we're offering a different way to do that. The third step frees you to no longer have your emotions in control. This is where serenity comes in the presence of chaos. Your mind is going, what? I don't want this. I want to be happy, not sad. And the emotions get all stirred up, right? So this process helps you to get to the place where equanimity or balance comes back into the game and emotions are no longer in control. And that frees you to move from reaction into reflection. And reflection allows you to move from the chaos of your emotions to the clarity of your mind. Those three things: clarity, commitment, and courage. Takes those three things to do step five, which is to see clearly that the burdens that you thought were your problems are actually sources of wisdom. They have wisdom for you. There is wisdom in our discontent. And that is a powerful thing to begin to understand, much less be able to find the wisdom within the discontent. And that's what these 6 steps show you how to do. And what it does finally is it allows you the freedom to remain calm in the midst of emotional turmoil. You don't have to get rid of the emotional turmoil. You'll learn how to remain calm in its presence. And that's why it's a paradox. So these are the 6 steps. That, do you have any comments or questions on that, anybody?
I have a comment. I have a question that came to my mind about, I think in that duality part, you had talked about that, the yin and the yang. How does that fit in here, or does it?
It totally fits in. It's the basic pattern inside the flow of life. The flow of life, if you, most of us don't realize this, but the yin yang symbol is always in motion. There's always movement. There's constant change between yin and yang. It goes back and forth and around and back and forth. And so, yeah, it's the fundamental, one of the fundamental polarities, masculine and feminine, win and lose, high and low, these soft and hard, mental and emotional. These are all polarities, which actually, if we look at it properly, are actually in harmony. And they're out of balance because we keep choosing one over the other. I keep saying, I want yin, not yang. I want yang, not yin. And a lot of work in today's world, transpersonal work, is about balancing yin and yang, right? And so all of the polarities have one goal, and that's to have us understand that they go back and forth and it's harmonious. And if we can find how to balance them, which is what this process teaches you how to do, then you can stay in the middle and stay balanced no matter what's happening. So
I think Mara was going to say, say something. I'm sorry.
Oh, Mara, go.
Oh, just if you could go back to that other slide and just say maybe in a different way about step 2 and 3.
Yes, no, my thing isn't working. Don't tell me why. Come on. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can get this. It's stuck for some reason.
I think it's just going forward, not backwards.
My little arrow won't move. Ah, there it is. Previous. Now let's try it again. Previous and previous. Okay, your question again, Mare.
Oh, just to say something more about step 2 and 3.
Step 2 and 3. When you realize that those 3 things, impermanence, that opposites are actually one whole and not in a fight with each other, and that movement is a constant, when you realize those things, what you thought was a problem won't look like a problem anymore. Okay, because you realize that, oh, life is telling me that I should go with the flow. What's the flow? Movement into acceptance, and then movement into rejection. I really want to do this. It's so cool. Oh my God. Oh my God. But if I do it, then I have all these problems, and then I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I want to reject it. So, then you go down to the other side, and then you go back to acceptance in your own mind. Don't you find yourself doing that when you have a decision to make? You go on one side and look for the pros, and you go to the other side and look for the cons. So once you know how to do that, that it's not two things in opposition, it's one whole thing. And we teach you how to navigate that, so that what you thought was a problem isn't a problem anymore, because it's just a pattern. It's just a pattern, right? And you can know how to go with patterns. I mean, we all go with patterns, right? Day and night, you get up in the morning, you have a pattern. You brush your teeth, you put on fresh clothes, you take a shower, whatever, you have breakfast, you look at the clock, you decide you have to get started with your day. A pattern unfolds. Patterns are humankind's salvation in many ways, emotionally. So once you see the pattern, then you realize, oh, this isn't a problem if I honor the movement of the pattern. Okay. If I get up every morning and I wake up and I complain about it, and I say, I don't want to get dressed, I don't want to take a shower, right? And I want to have dinner. I don't want breakfast. I want dinner. Okay. I've created the problem because I'm not willing to go with the flow of the pattern of a day as it unfolds, as you've been taught, right? And I'm not saying you can't have dinner for breakfast. That's not my point. You can always have dinner for breakfast if you want. But if you make it a problem, it means you're not looking at it in a particular way that's useful. Does that help, Mare?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Susan, you got
Yeah, I
something?
was just thinking also along those same lines, is that when we have anything negative happens, or our emotions are negative, it's important to honor those, like like you have to honor where you're at and say, okay, I'm really upset about this. But once you start thinking and using your habits and your thoughts and those patterns to remind yourself where you want to be, but you have to acknowledge, and it's like having a guest, you have to acknowledge and honor it first, and then you
You
can let
do.
it go. And then you can
You have
deliberately,
to, well, actually, we're not talking about letting it go. We're talking
no,
about relaxing into it. We're
relaxing
talking
into it.
about
Okay.
relaxing into it. Yeah. Letting go
Okay.
of the fight against it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Letting go of the fight. But the goal is to relax into what your life is in the moment. And we come back to what is going with the flow, being in the present. Okay. And so when we can understand that the present is not always going to be pleasant, then it's easier to step into it, because we also understand why the pattern operates. And that's a lot of what we cover in the course, is why the pattern is the way it is. Okay. So, okay, we were back here. What do you think is stopping you right now from claiming your happiness? Mare, what do you think is stopping you from claiming your happiness?
I think my past.
Your past. Okay.
Yeah.
So your past is coming in, and it's overtaking your capacity to be happy with what is right now.
Yeah, or getting in the way of the belief that it's possible to be any different.
Okay, perfect. Mary, how about you? What do you think is stopping you right now from claiming your happiness?
Um, not being able to fully let go of things from the past, similar. Yeah.
Okay, all
Mhm,
right,
mhm.
good. Susan, how about you? What do you think is stopping you right now from claiming your happiness?
Um, though those things that I can identify with other girls too, just that I had a rough childhood too. So when I get triggered easily, anything around neglect or rejection, and it does
Mhm.
trigger that for me, the past, because
Okay.
of the experiences I had. And so then I have to really go, okay, but today you're safe. So I have to remind myself. So, but that is what is still my blockage, even though I've gone through all of
Okay.
this and I understand it. And I know that, I have to just remind myself I'm safe today, and I'm not in that situation anymore. It's just a reminder to myself, so I know how to get out of that. But sure, it happens all the time.
So she's mentioning a really important thing, but it requires a lot of work on her part. The issue, from my point of view as a neurolinguistic programming person, is that your unconscious mind has not been reconditioned or reprogrammed to accept these things as something that you no longer have to hold on to as something that stops you. It just says, no, we're not going there. The unconscious mind says, no, we're not going there. You can't, I'm not even going there enough to give you a learning. No. So as long as your unconscious mind is saying no to something, I don't care how much time you spend consciously, you are not going to succeed. Right? So you have to deal with your unconscious mind. And that's what the 6-step process does. It deals with your unconscious mind. It kind of re-educates it to a new way of understanding why this experience was there and what to do with it now. Okay. And also, it lays down a new neural pathway in your brain that lets you go, I can be both unhappy and happy at the same time. I can be both happy and unhappy. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to be happy and unhappy at the same time? That would be nice, huh? Then you could just be happy all the time. Because if you're aware that happiness and unhappiness go together, okay, like it's two sides of the same coin. Think about a coin for a moment. If you have a quarter, it has a heads on one side and a tails on the other, and you take off one of those sides, let's say you're anti-tail, okay, you work really hard to get the tail off, you don't got a quarter anymore. That coin is now worthless. You will not buy you 25 cents worth of anything because it's no longer an actual quarter. So when you think of opposites as something that is one thing, it's like a quarter. It's got two sides to it. One is I'm right, the other is I'm wrong. One is I'm happy, the other side is I'm sad. One is I love my partner, the other is I really don't like my partner oftentimes, right? So every one of these is like a quarter, and it has value if you know what it is and you know how to spend it properly. Okay. So let's see. This right here is just a list. I'm not going to go through these of the normal things that people say stop them. Susan already talked about the blame, shame, and complain game. That's one of the biggest things that stops us from being free to claim our happiness. Arrogance, not being able to forgive, low self-esteem, stinginess or avarice, jealousy, vanity, arrogance, all of these very normal human things are what stop us from being able to claim happiness because we're gauged in trying to get rid of everything that's on this list. Let's just wipe all that out. Let's just wipe it out and then I can be happy. Well, we're saying, no, you don't have to do that because you're actually not going to be able to. It's not a doable outcome. So we're giving you another outcome. So our new definition given by Susan and I in our course of happiness and how to get there is that happiness it's an attitude. And your set point is kind of determined by your attitude, right? And it's another way of saying it is it's a perspective or a point of view. And that's what we're offering in the class is different perspectives, two different perspectives and points of view. Happiness is more easily available when you build your home of happiness. You have that internal structure that Susan talks to and helps you create within your inner world. And it's easiest with a map that reflects the actual territory of being human, which includes impermanence, duality as one harmonious whole, and the presence of continual change. When you put that in the map, then it makes the actual territory more navigatable. Is that a word? More navigatable. You can get around more easily in human life if your map is correct. You know what it's like if your GPS is off and you put it in and it takes you to the wrong place, and all it does is spend time going recalculating, right?
Make a
And
U-turn
it may never,
impossible.
yeah,
Make a
there you
U-turn
go.
impossible. That's my voice.
Yeah. So these are the things that we're going to focus on in the course a great deal and teach you how to build your home of happiness and to expand your map of the human experience by including those three things, which, by the way, are from mystic psychology. So this is our call to action. The question for you to answer is, are you ready to discover the true essence of happiness, which you see is balancing? It's a continual process, continual movement, and it could be happy and sad. It could be rich and poor. It could be right and wrong. Any of the words written there, polar opposites that are actually one whole thing, and the whole is comprised by continuous movement between these two. So if you want to join us, our program is called What is Happiness Anyway? We're going to help you answer that question with an answer. Okay. So this is your chance to embark on this journey with us. The two of you have already done this program, my part of it, not Susan's. So if Susan is doing this differently on her own as the private thing, that might be something to really consider doing with her in her program, where it's just happiness for no reason. So we're asking people to sign up today because we have so many gifts of awakening that are included in this program. It's a 3-month program for how to be happy no matter what. So it begins on September 17th, which is about a week from now, I guess.
Yes.
It runs for 3 months through December 3rd. You have live coaching masterclass every Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time. All the material is recorded, both video and audio, and you have it for 6 months after the end of the course, as well as during the course. And you have 24-hour access to both Susan and myself via email or text. We only ask that you give us 24 hours to respond to you, which we'll do our best to do. One of the bonuses in this course is you get 2-hour private coaching sessions, one-on-one with me and 2 with Susan. So that's 4 additional hours of private coaching with the experts on this particular things that you're studying. The other thing that's part of the bonus is an MP3 called Answers Rest Within. And this is one of a series of 8 MP3s that I did many years ago. They are hypnotic guided meditations that speak to your unconscious mind about varying topics. And in this one, it speaks to where the answers you're looking for, oh, look, they're inside of you, not outside of you. And it's accompanied by original music by a longtime friend of mine, Divya Mamboda, that is very beautiful and calls your soul, if I may use the term, to relax and learn. So these are additional bonuses. By the way, I do have 2 full series of those. It's a series of 8 MP3s. If you're interested, you can connect with me for how to find them. So satisfaction guaranteed. If after the first 2-hour class you decide this course is not for you, we will happily refund your money, no questions asked, not a problem. Your investment here is $3,500. We have an early bird discount of $500 that ends on September 12th, which I believe is tomorrow at midnight. We have a 6 payment options. It's $633 a month for the 3 months. And to enroll, you can go to www.whatishappinessanyway.com. If all of that is too much for you, then you need to contact either Susan or myself, and we'll talk with you about possibilities for taking the class in a way that might work for you. So that is, I believe, where we are with our little PowerPoint presentation today. You see that there's a bunch of people down here all together, and that's sort of supporting our notion of group coaching, which is quite powerful in many ways and oftentimes more impactful for students than having one-on-one coaching, as if you were to hire us to do it one-on-one with you every week. And that's because everybody has so many different viewpoints and different pieces to the puzzle. Some things are clear to some people and not clear at all to others. And so that sharing, and the thing is what happens. And the key thing in a group coaching program, which I'll just share with you, is to keep remembering when somebody else is dominating the conversation, what you want to do is not say, this doesn't relate to me. You want to say, how does this relate to me? What in here is valid and important for me to understand? And that's what makes group coaching, which is very in these days, to be so powerful. So that is the scoop here for today. And we thank you very much for being here with us today. You guys, you're so sweet. So let me ask you, because we have a few minutes left. I mean, I know you probably might not take this course because the two of you have already done a whole lot of work with me, but you might study with Susan in a separate thing. Tell me what you thought about our presentation today. Mary, go ahead.
Flowed really well. It was having taken your course, it really highlighted what, the things I've learned, that is definitely an evolution of, understanding it deeper and deeper. And
fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you. Are you starting to get a little happier
Yeah,
in your life?
it's interesting. It makes me aware that my happiness set point is kind of low. Like, and I do recognize it in people where you talk about the genetics. Like, some people just are naturally like so bubbly and will approach you with a hug, and it just makes me realize that I don't have a high set point in my genetics, but it's something that can
You,
be cultivated. So it's good to know.
Right.
look
true.
up epigenetics, EPIGENET. It's Greg Braden, and I can't think of the other guy's name, but he's the one who started it. Because that is about altering your genetic patterning. So there is a way to deal with that 50% that is now pretty well documented as being able to make some changes.
Yeah.
Greg Braden, and what is the other guy's name?
Bruce
I can't remember.
Lipton.
Thank you. And Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden. Check that out.
Have you read any of
Epigenetics.
his books, Mary?
I've listened to several talks a
Mhm.
while, quite a while
I
ago.
think his book is Biology of Belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about turning the genes off.
And then I feel like there's such a also huge component of that conditioning since we were young. Like, were your parents happy? Did they model what that would look like? And yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we're
Yeah.
attempting to change with the 6-step process and with Susan's inner architecture. Tells you how to do it the way we weren't ever taught.
Right. Then that's also the yin and yang, because it's either I want to be just like my mom because she instilled these things in me, or I want to be the opposite of her because that is what I don't like. And so that's just that self-awareness again. And it does work if you're aware of that. Yeah.
Change is not as difficult as we think if we know how to do it.
Right.
And that's the difference. We don't know how to do it. What we try to do is get rid of what we don't like. That is not change, because it doesn't happen. You can't get rid of what you don't like. It's just going to come back in a slightly altered form if you manage
Bite
to
you
get
in the
rid of
butt.
it one way. Yeah,
Bite
definitely.
you in the butt.
Mayor, how about you? You got any comments for
Yeah,
today?
I really like the workshop. I learned a lot. Like, even though I've taken your class, it just feels like putting it all together.
Good. Yeah, I think the inner structure, for those of you who've been my students, knowing the inner structure of happiness from Susan's point of view is also helpful, because sometimes you're trying to apply the work that you've learned with me, which is the facticity 6-step process about the impermanence and the duality and the movement. But the reality is that you still haven't really got the internal structure set up correctly. You've got maybe bad relationships, maybe you're still shaming, blaming, and whatever other people. Maybe you've worked on your of the mind, heart, body, and soul. Maybe you've worked on 2 or 3 of them and one you've ignored, right? Maybe you're not clear about your life purpose yet. And maybe your friends, your garden, as she puts it, who you've got in your garden may actually be undermining your desires. So Susan and I thought that the two went together, right? In the sense that you start with one and then you progress to the others. Yeah, they fit, right, Susan?
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. The yin and yang. No, we're not the opposite though.
But we want to help you be able to move back and forth between inner and outer happiness with greater ease and comfort. And making sure you have everything in your home of happiness internally established is very important to be able to do the facticity work, or the 6-step process. That, if you have a lot of trouble, you might check back with the home of happiness and see, is there a piece missing here that would really help? Okay. I know in our Enneagram of Paradox work, oftentimes what's missing for people is the soul component. It's not real for people. And if you want it to be valuable, it needs to become real in some way. So that's part of what we help you identify in both trainings.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
thank you guys for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Appreciate it.
It was
And
wonderful.
if you know
Mary.
people who you think would be interested, send them our way. We'd appreciate that. Okay.
Okay.
We could
Thank you,
have a
people.
fun, we could get your friends in and we could have a really fun time. With the Happy for No Reason and all that, we do have fun techniques and strategies and opportunities to collaborate a little bit too. Because we want to be, we don't want to depress people.
No, after
Yeah.
all, our goal is to know how to be happy.
Right.
No matter what.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming today and for staying.
you.
It was fun. And I appreciate your willingness to just go through it with just the two of you. It was fun.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Much love to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let me stop this.